Then we come to the very last presentation of this conference before we come to the conclusions. And the speaker will be Dana McCoskey. She works for the US Department of Energy, and she will give a presentation on the research and development to advance sustainable hydropower.
Thank you so much. And so many thanks to everyone for showing up and our conference organizers. This was a lot, but a wonderful experience. A little bit about me. I have a background in conservation and fish and wildlife ecology, and I've been working with hydropower for about a decade, so I've learned to appreciate these bespoke energy technologies, the dams in our environment. At this conference, I thought it was a really great opportunity to think about sustainability and what it means. For me, since I'm up here, I think it's really context and scale dependent. I think we need to ensure, if we're talking about ecology, that humans are included in the ecosystem model. Sustainability is not a luxury, and if we want to coexist with nature, it's really not a choice. Having so many different scientists and practitioners and managers and policymakers together, it really made me think about my late mentor, Professor Thomas Lovejoy, who, beyond just being a kind and generous person, also started the World Wildlife Fund and led it for a long time, and did some really great scientific experiments that showed us that big patches of habitat are going to harbor more biodiversity than small ones, which was an experiment done in the Amazon, but guess what? It also applies to rivers in a lot of different environments. And thinking about that, it really made me realize some of the things that I came to him with when I was doing research. I was measuring things and counting things, and I just didn't understand why there was no response to my results. And so I went to him, and the first thing he said, well, did you talk to people? And so I went out and I talked to a lot of people, and sometimes those, there wasn't a reaction. And so I went back and he said, well, maybe Dana, you just need a policy with some really strong teeth. And that's when I started working at this kind of intersection. And so I'm here to encourage all of our scientists to really, really focus on telling your story and letting us know what matters. And whether it's about, the renewable energy that you're generating, the nature that you want to protect, focus in on that message and tell your story well. And policymakers, please work with these scientists and think about the full process, establishing the policy, ensuring that it works, monitoring, mitigation. So just a note there before I get into the main things I'm here to talk about, which is the Water Power Technologies Office Hydropower Program. We fund R&D to advance sustainability. And if you're not familiar with the Energy Department, it's a large agency in the US, headquartered in Washington, DC. Our mission is related to energy, science and innovation, and nuclear safety and security. The branch I'm in is in science and innovation, but really I think we might need to revise this figure here because we have received $62 billion that's for infrastructure. And excitingly, a little more than half of that is for clean energy demonstrations. Within my branch in the Water Power Technologies Office, which is in the energy efficiency and renewable energy space, we have a hydropower and marine energy program. So I'm going to focus on our hydro program, where we look at technologies like pump storage hydro, low impact technologies for new hydropower sites, developing non-powered dams and conduits, and really anything else that you could use to generate water power from. And we're looking at hydropower and water power from all scales. And this is really important because the US has re-entered into the Paris Agreement. And so we are trying to cut our emissions in half by 2030. And we have a lot to do so that we can meet those targets by 2050. So it matters, the smallest of increases of energy all the way up to large utility scale things that are so we heard a little bit about hydropower in the US. This large map is from our huge database called HydroSource. I would say check it out if you haven't. It has a lot of information. It is very US centric. These blue dots on the map are our privately owned facilities, and the other colors are the federal facilities, so it's about half and half for capacity. And right now, we have this huge challenge that of over 400 of them in the next decade are going to have to be relicensed, and some of them were not licensed during our current environmental regulatory framework. So I think we have a lot of risk of losing some of these. We heard from our agency, our NGO, the National Hydropower Association, that a third of these privately owned dams are thinking about surrendering their license. In addition, we're looking at adding some new hydropower, not as much as other nations are, because we've built a lot of ours out. So we're looking right now most likely at pump storage, new developments in Alaska, and adding power to non-powered dams and some conduits. In the last decade, we've seen mostly capacity additions. We have this really great resource called the Market Report. It's updated every couple of years. It's very US-centric, but it always has a global chapter. So if you want to know more about what we're seeing, please check out that resource. But back to the program I work in. What I wanted to point out here is that this area, the environmental and hydrologic system science work, is really where the core of our sustainability focus is, and this is the portfolio that I lead. We have put this foundational to our other areas, the innovations for low impact growth, the grid portfolio, and our fleet modernization portfolio. We also invest a lot in data access analytics and workforce development. So these are our research themes within my area. You heard from some of our national lab staff here and some of our industry supported awardees. I can really say at this point, there are dozens of projects. When I started, there was probably one project to tick the box for each of these categories. And so I put our DOE projects map on here, which is not just for this portfolio, but for all of our work. So if you want to know more about the specific projects or meet the scientist or get directed to the key findings, this is a really great spot, the project maps. I'm also happy to tell you more about some of these different areas. A thing to point out is we are congressionally appropriated, and our budget has been expanding over time. These green bars are for the hydro program and the blue for the marine energy. So we've gotten to do more and more of this great work, looking at sustainability and other aspects of hydropower. We've also received over $1 billion of bonus money from the bipartisan infrastructure bill. So we've really hit the ground running to get that out the door and get the innovation happening. We had a new administration that was very different 2 years ago, and it really aligned with what our office was already doing. We had all these goals for climate and clean energy, so we were in a good place. And we heard these rumors of something big that was going to happen. And I don't think that any of us really believed it fully, because we'd had these fire drills before, like, what would you do if you were given $100 billion? And we never were given that much money. Well, we've received quite a bit of investment through this bipartisan infrastructure law and also the Inflation Reduction Act, among other legislation. And excitingly, some of that bipartisan infrastructure law, which we call the bill, put money into the language specifically for our existing hydro. And it's over $750 million for things like production incentives, efficiency incentives, but over $550 million for enhancements, and those can be environmental enhancements. So I'm super excited to see if people are going to deploy some of our clean energy technologies and to see what they can do with our very old fleet. 2 years in the bigger picture, we are moving very rapidly towards electrification. We are doing everything we can to ensure that the transmission is there. People are changing laws. It's almost impossible to keep up with, like, not only what's going on in my agency and all the great projects that are being started, but also what's going on with just laying out this landscape so that we can meet these climate goals. Notably, looking to deploy 30 gigawatts of wind by 2030 and streamlining environmental reviews so we can get the clean energy tech out there. We've also seen a lot of legislation for nature protection, like the America the Beautiful Act, which is going to help local communities restore and protect 30% of our land and water by 2030. We're also seeing very great memos from the White House that are saying, Agencies prioritize corridors and connectivity for fish and wildlife, so very aligned with what we're already doing, but happy to see that at the highest level that's coming down and being the direction. And so things I'm excited about, well, because we had all this bonus money, we were able to give $16 million to the labs recently, so we have all these new projects. It's amazing. I did a little word cluster of our fish passage lab call, because fish passage has been a topic I've been ramping up in our office for the last few years. But there's even more than that, so please check out our press releases. We have so much new work going on, and we're hoping our labs can engage with our international partners as much as possible to enrich this work. What's going on right now, June, the secretary put up the pride flag. We started getting this influx of applications for these incentives I was talking about. All of that money that can be used for these really great improvements in existing dams, and that's closing next week. I went out to Colorado. We're reviewing this large industry funding opportunity for fish passage and protection technologies. We may be able to even put more money towards that. Going back to DC, having wildfires in Canada, making our air quality very terrible, and really feeling like all this sadness. I watched the dam be destroyed in Ukraine, and I think a lot of us have been dealing with this collective trauma. So our hearts really go out to you that are closer, but we're thinking about it as well while all of this is going on. I'm working with 13 other federal agencies to coordinate all of our fish passage funding. This was something that the White House was very interested in us doing. We have different mission spaces, but we realized there's all types of things we can do to improve the environment, whether it's dam removal, improving culverts, improving our hydropower, to enable people to deploy fishways that can provide connectivity. And so we have this fish passage portal that tells people where all of that thematic money is. So we're really happy to do that, and we're mapping it as well. Another really exciting thing is industry has come together to reimagine the hydropower vision roadmap. So DOE made this very comprehensive, almost textbook-like hydropower vision report, great resource, and we made a roadmap. But even in the last year, 5 years or so, things have changed, and we've seen a large focus more towards flexible operations from growth. And so we're really reorganizing this and working with a wide intersection of stakeholders to put together recommendations for initiatives for the community. So this isn't DOE, this is like what we all think we need to do by 2050 to get there for flexibility, safe dams, and sustainable approaches. Also very excited about all of our collaborations. So great to see so many of you with these inter and transdisciplinary teams. I think this is really where the magic happens. We have been reaching out to people and just making those connections with our owner-operators in the federal fleet. We have a MOU with the Norwegian Research Institute, so we can collaborate. I love being the matchmaker to pair our lab scientists with their person in a different country that's really doing the same kind of work, and you can learn a lot. But we're also working with just different community groups, the Uncommon Dialogue, led by Stanford University. We were able to fund some work with them to look across the NGO and hydro owner-operator space, and to bring a large group of people along to highlight the things where we agree and we can make progress. There's also a lot of really cool innovation going on in industry right now. I know some people brought up hybridization. We're seeing like communities in Alaska that are able to have 100% renewable grid. I don't know if you call that like a micro or a meso grid, but really cool. Douglas County PUD in Washington State has built a modular hydro unit on their existing dam. And I heard someone here say like this is not mature or whatever. People are building this, so we're there. And so they've been able to increase storage and flexibility for their community with this innovation. Natel, Sterling, and Abe are here. It's been a pleasure working with you. We're so proud of you for designing a fish-safe turbine, and it's been a pleasure to see your company grow. So we're seeing all kinds of great examples of success. And one of my favorite things is we have these STEM initiatives, and so we're now giving kids and teachers the tools to tag fish and to access the data and to really understand what's going on. And I think this is where we can really come forward with our society. So with that, I could talk up here all day, but thank you so much for having me, and I'll take any questions.